Yes, I appreciate it.
Okay, so I will, and then someone else is in the waiting room. So this way, when it's finished, I'll send it over to you later this afternoon. So if you need it, then you can have it.
Okay.
Let me just share my screen right now. So this is the meal plans for residents. David has an 1,800 calorie diet, which is, it's an average diet. It's what the average person should be eating. It's not too low. It's a little lower for a fit, bulky man. So you're not going to feed him like that. You're going to feed him more like what I would eat, like a woman, a little bit less than most of the men would think. And it is low sodium, minced, which is smaller than chopped. Chopped would be like if you get a Cobb salad and there are turkey pieces that are about 1-inch squares, minced is smaller than that. So we want to break it down into smaller pieces for David. Okay, is everybody taking some notes, I hope?
Yes, okay.
Okay, so we want to break it down into smaller pieces for him. And think about if you were eating like dry chicken, it's like it's hard to swallow. So we have to make it a little bit moist so that it's easier to swallow. So his needs to be, I would say, no bigger than a very small dice. We all know, like the dice that you roll. That's about how small minced would be. So instead of a 1-inch chunk that, I feel like if I'm in the way for your view, we want it like that, his bite-sized pieces. Pretend like he can't chew that much. Instead of chewing 22 times, we have to break it down a little so he could probably chew 5 to 10 times and swallow. So I want you to think of it that way. And it needs to be moist, because if it's dry, it's just going to get stuck in his throat or somewhere in the esophagus or the digestive system. So moist would be some olive oil or some other kind of, because he's on low sodium, we need to make it have flavor, because salt usually gives a lot of flavor. So I know you use sometimes Mrs. Dash. I want you to also think of like cinnamon, sometimes like things like apple cider vinegar, or, when you go out to eat and there's a delicious sauce on it, that kind of thing. But we don't want it to be high in sugar. It needs to be low in sugar, low in salt, and low in chemicals. And one of the brands is called Primal Kitchen. They make a ton of different salad dressings, Alfredo sauces, tomato sauces that are much healthier. So I would recommend looking at picking up some of those. They're available now at Home Goods and TJ Maxx, so it shouldn't be hard to find. It's called Primal Kitchen. It's founded by a nutritionist. And so if you're not creative in the kitchen, you can just have some of these sauces handy. I will say that good quality olive oil with any seasonings in it, like mint or oregano, or maybe paprika or turmeric, olive oil is one of the healthiest things. So if you're cooking meals for these people, I would put some olive oil in there. And if you're not cooking it and it's dry, I know you're cooking on some level, but if you're not making a fancy dish, then at least like toss it in some oil and some seasoning. And I believe Richard's our head guy, and Richard wants the staff to eat with the residents. So maybe that's not happening at this house, but when you make it, take a little portion and try it and make sure, oh, I could chew that easily. It's not hard as a rock. And when I swallow it, it doesn't get stuck in my throat. That's the best way you're going to know, because otherwise you have no idea, especially if the residents are not that communicative in this home. So whoever's making something should take a little bit off to the side and try a bit themselves. And if you're thinking, I don't want to eat that, well, residents thinking that as well. So it needs to be good enough for you to feed it to yourself or your kids or your mom. And so I want you to keep that in mind. So for David, we need small bite size. You should be able to put a little something in your mouth, chew once or twice, and swallow. I mean, ideally, he would chew more than that, but we have no idea. We can't guarantee he will. Let me let someone else in. Okay, so low sodium means low salt, but it doesn't just mean salt. You can have tomato sauces and all kinds of salad dressings and seasoning things that are really high in salt. So it's not just about added salt. So make sure you read the label. And low sodium, I would stay under, I wouldn't buy or use anything that has more than 125 milligrams of sodium. And that's how it will say it on the label. There are a can of soup, like a Chunky or a Campbell's or something, sometimes has 750 milligrams. That would put any of us over our daily limit in one little cup of soup. So make sure you read the labels, and that is more important for who's ever doing the shopping. But those of you that are not shopping and you're in charge of meal prep or feed it, it is going to be meal prep. You need to also look, because people get busy and they might have overlooked something. Labels change. The same thing you bought last week or last year suddenly could be filled with something else and the label reads different. So just because you read the label in January and it's under 125 and you buy it, at the end of the year, it may be 250. So you really just have to look at the label. And it's spelled out. It's very easy for you on the nutrition facts panel. Okay, so we also need it to be mild. They're saying with mildly thick nectar liquid. And that's saying that it should be, let's see, and minced with mildly. Yeah, I believe that is not just the liquid that he's drinking, that it's also the consistency of the sauce. That's a little unclear to me, to be honest, but regardless, we want it to not be too thick, right? I just had a smoothie. Sometimes my smoothie, I don't put enough liquid in it and it's really thick. And other times I put plenty of liquid and it slides down like water. We're leaning towards the water. We don't want it to be too thick. So like an Alfredo sauce is getting on the thicker side, whereas the olive oil sauce, or even, I don't know if you cook with wine or white wine vinegar, but those sauces are going to be thinner. And big picture, it's going to be easier if are you preparing 4 different meals? How are you doing it in the home, Franca, or anybody? Anybody?
Ronaldo, can you answer that?
Yeah, we just preparing one meal only for them. But like you said, that we need to separate for Joey and David right now. So we're gonna start to separate for them for the food. But we just make it one, because our menu is every day. We just changes every day.
Right. So you're making one menu for the 4 different people.
Yes.
And I think that's okay. You can just add some salt or a little extra seasoning for Robert and Mario towards the end.
Yes.
So it's going to be really important to have this on the fridge or handy, this sheet. Do you have a copy of this, Franca?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So, and maybe make a couple of copies somewhere in the kitchen so that if one gets lost or misplaced, there's always more copies, because mealtime is frequent. So we don't want anyone hunting for this at mealtime, especially in case someone's not available to give it to them. So you really could focus the meal on David and Joey, thinking flavor for them. It will taste good for Mario and Robert, and you can always add a little bit of sauce, a little bit of salt and a little extra sauce at the end, because it probably is easier to have one meal. If you want to have 2 different meals, that's an option, and we can work on that for you to help you, and I can send that to Juani. But I really think from our experience in working with the staff in the homes, people have more success when they have one meal and they just tweak it a little bit for each individual person. So generic speaking, you have like different kinds of mixed vegetables or broccoli or a salad, and you have either chicken or fish. Everyone could eat that. It's just going to taste a little bit different, because For Robert or Mario, you might be able to put a different kind of sauce on top. But for David and Joey, you're gonna chop it up a little bit better. And then you're going to puree. Neither one of them is on a pureed diet, so I don't think you have to. Once you take the food and puree it, that's when it becomes a bigger issue. They're mostly on,
Yeah,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I just
we
wanna,
just only chop it.
You just chopping, just little pieces for David.
okay.
Yeah.
I just want to ask Hawani a quick question. Okay. So give me an example of something that you prepared yesterday. Anybody?
Oh, I think yesterday is like spaghetti, like a pasta.
Okay,
Yeah, and then we just because the pasta is very soaked, so David and there's no problem about that. Joey and then David's they can eat it.
okay.
Yeah,
They have no problem with that.
yeah, and there's no problem about that. That is the menu for yesterday.
Okay. Well, then what about trying some different kinds of pasta? There's black pasta, there's
Yeah, we can try it.
pasta, red pasta, there's pasta made out of lentils, pasta made out of chickpeas, just to mix it up. They're all a little bit different.
I
You
think
know,
we
Yeah, we
have
can
that.
try it.
I think I saw that in their plates. That was yesterday or so. The green, yellow pasta like tomato.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
have, just so that it's
Yeah.
different. There's a pasta that I buy that's made out of beets and carrots, and it's purple. You know, I
Yeah,
make,
I've seen that pasta before, yeah.
I make it more as like an accompaniment than the whole dish, so that way you could also have like fish on another day or chicken and a little pasta on the side because it has vegetables in it. So just to mix it up, if they're good at eating pasta, then that's a good choice for them. But if you ate pasta every single day, you would be missing a lot of other nutrients.
No, because we don't. We have a menu every day. Just different recipe, different menu. So we're not serving everyday pasta.
Okay. And do you follow our menu pretty well? or
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
So what is another favorite for the men?
Like a soup, chicken soup.
Okay.
Sometimes we make the what's called that? The meatloaf.
Okay. So, pop quiz, meatloaf for David, what would you do?
That one is very soapy because that is a grind already. The ground turkey. Yeah. With the
Right.
vegetables, separate vegetables.
Okay, so you just have to make it really small. Like,
Mm,
I don't know, but I'm gonna say
yeah.
smaller than.
We just cut it up very small.
What's that, Ronaldo?
We just cut it up small only.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
like a
want
We
to
make it like for a small child. We chop it.
yes,
We chop it up for him. Yeah.
for a small child, but when I hear meatloaf, I'm thinking it might be a little bit dry. Even if it's moist, it's still kind of dry to swallow, like fried chicken might be. So we need to make sure that there's some kind of moisture with it.
Oh yeah, it usually has a sauce with it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there's, yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, there's a sauce.
Yeah. It gets moist. Excuse me. Oh.
Okay, so then, and I just confirmed with Hawani that the mildly thick nectar is for the fluids. So,
Ah.
so
Yes, exactly.
they can all swallow.
Excuse me.
Are you making them smoothies then? Or are they just having water? What are they drinking during the day?
Like for okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, y'all. David is usually it's like a sparkling water, but we anything David drinks, we add the thickener
Okay,
to it. Yeah.
what's the thickener that you add?
The next
Franca, help me.
The nectar thickener is one.
It's called
It's
Just
nectar.
call it
yeah, yeah.
thickener.
That was one the doctor recommended.
Okay, so it's for calories then. So we're trying to put more calories into him. Is he,
Oh, okay.
is he low body weight? She's gonna tell me in a second.
Huh?
Is David a low body weight?
Recently he actually dropped a little
Yeah,
time.
he's losing weight.
It dropped because last time we had the quarterly meeting, they were looking at the weight last year quarter meeting weight and this current one. There are a little difference. So
What's up, y'all?
actually, like
Mhm.
what happened was that early June, David was having this episode of vomiting, you know. We actually didn't know what was going on.
Okay,
So we tried to look at it. We said, okay, maybe we just have to reduce his meal to see if it will
No,
stop.
because there's a David has a history of acid. He's acidic.
oh, it's the acidic. Okay, so we're trying to,
Yeah.
we're trying to alkalize him a little bit. So another,
Mm.
no? They're saying, Hawani is, the dietitian is saying that
Yeah.
choking on thin liquids. So we want to, we're trying to thicken them up. That's what she's saying.
Okay.
The reason is,
Yes.
okay. That's not something very common to choke on thin liquids, but it's possibly because he's a slow at swallowing. Because I can't, why would somebody, when do I choke? On water, I choke on water when I drink too fast or I'm not
Yeah.
breathing.
Yeah. Too
Mhm.
fast.
So
Mhm.
he's not thinking about it. So slow and steady wins the race. So helping him get his food in slowly and his drinks
Yes.
slowly is going to help that in the long run. Maybe there's something
Yeah.
physical going on that's causing that, some reflux or something, if he's got a little acid. But I think with David, let's try to feed him slowly and maybe don't give him such big drinks. Give him little cups. And if he finishes it, then you can give another little cup. Because
Okay.
that's what's gonna help him move. What helps you eat slower, you know, if, when we're starving, I've seen a lot of the residents at the various homes and they just like, eating is exciting, you know, they're not, correct me if I don't need to even know, but like food and sex are the two biggest ways people get pleasure. And I'm gonna assume that in these homes, food is the number one. So
Right.
we need to help them have excitement. They're excited to eat. It's one of the things they can do. So some people tend to eat fast and, you know, then they want seconds. We have to slow them down. So that is
Yes.
the point of having conversation. You know, I know you may not converse with all the members of this home, but making it kind of a quiet, relaxing environment versus, oh my God, I got 5 minutes to eat before I gotta go do something. That's when choking is gonna happen just out of fast activity. So we want to slow him down a little bit. Okay, so he has a swallowing difficulty because of dysphagia is what Hawani is saying. So he actually has a little functional thing somewhere in his digestion where the muscle is not behaving properly. And so it is a muscle, and therefore eating healthy is going to help strengthen his muscle just as if it was a bicep. We need the nutrients. He needs the amino acids that are in protein, not just protein like everyone thinks about with paleo and keto eating, but the digested components of the protein. So getting him to chew thoroughly and chop the food into liquid, right? Because that's the digestion starts in the mouth with your teeth and your saliva. It starts to break the food down. And if people are swallowing the food whole, then maybe you have to break it down smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think that's one of the points of getting some of his calories into a liquid, because no matter what, it's already pre-digested. Does that help or make sense so far? So I think for him, getting some type of smoothies into him are
Ah.
not too thin, not too thick. He probably needs, there's something called mouthfeel. It's you know what it is without me describing it. It's when the food is in your mouth, it's like how it tastes or the consistency of it. And we want to get him to, someone just pop, we want to get him to experience that and to slow down.
Yeah.
Fat is one of the most satisfying things in our mouths when we are eating. It is, so if we are just doing a fat-free diet, it's not exciting. And that's where the oil in the meals comes in. Coconut oil is good and because it has a different flavor. Almond oil, avocado oil, they're all different flavors. So I would definitely make sure that you use oil in your cooking. And if it's not in the cooking, then you put it on top. In my home with my family, we eat really healthy, but oil is a staple, like at the table. Oil goes on top of everything. 1/3 of our diets should be 1/3, not more, of fat. So if, you know, in our society, it's all messed up. People are so afraid of fat because they're afraid to get fat from fat. But fat is part of every one of your cells in your body. Fat is part of the cell membrane. And when you eat a sweet potato and you get vitamin A and you're going to absorb that, if your cell membrane is this shape or this shape or this shape, the nutrient from the sweet potato can't get into the cell. So your body doesn't get the benefit, even if you eat it. So fat is part of every cell membrane. If you don't eat enough good fat, your digestion is not going to work well. And your brain is not going to work well. And you're going to constantly be hungry. So a lot of the time when we're helping people with their diet, all of the people are afraid of fat and not eating enough. And you might be afraid as staff to put too much oil in their cooking. It's okay as long as it's healthy oils, all the ones that I just named. They're good for the body and they will help him get like flavor and enjoyment out of his food, which will help slow him down eventually with his eating, unless it's just a behavioral thing. But even so, if there's not enough fat, it affects the brain. So over the course of time, the behaviors will also improve. So it's really important to get fat. We make, I don't do boiling or steaming anything. I saute almost everything in some kind of oil. And my friends have even quoted that I'm drowning my food in oil, but it's not canola oil. It's not safflower oil. It's not sunflower oil. And I'm not deep frying anything. It's a saute with seasonings, mint, parsley, rosemary, like flavors. And I'm sure you've all been to a restaurant where they serve you oil with some seasonings in it and you're supposed to dip bread or something in it at an Italian restaurant and it tastes good.
Yeah.
So try to make that kind of flavorful sauce or seasoning, especially for David, but really across the board for all the guys, because it's going to help them feel better, behave better, and it will help for all of them, the digestion. And if, you know, even if someone has high cholesterol, that's not the oil is not the cause of the cholesterol. So that's the one place you should be putting the fat in their meals. It's, you know, drinking whole milk and eating ice cream, I would not agree with. That's the bad place to put in fat. But oil in your cooking, oil as part of your salad dressing, or oil on top of some sauteed vegetables is a great place. And that will help everybody with the swallowing, with the moist, and then it will help with the absorption. Sweet potatoes with coconut oil on it instead of sour cream, like in some kind of seasonings. We love sweet potatoes and cauliflower with cinnamon. I've made it for so many people, they go nuts. Tastes like candy. So think flavor, think fat, and think chopping it down to, for a baby. That was the right saying, whoever said that, baby size. And then for David, the liquids can't be too thin, and they also have to be, so they have to be a little bit thick, and they have to also be in child-size serving glasses. And you know, maybe you portion out his tall glass over here, and he can have one at a time of the little glasses. Little smaller spoons, smaller amounts in his mouth at a time. And everyone in this call has had a brownie or some chocolate mousse thing that's like heavenly or orgasmic or whatever. And you're just like, it slows you down for a minute. You're just like, oh my gosh, that is so good. You don't want to shove it in because then you don't even get to enjoy it. So think of that for these guys when you're feeding them, like slow and steady, and let it take time for them. So, for low sodium, we already mentioned less than 125 milligrams on a label of something, and you're going to stay within the low sodium as long as you don't add salt on top. And the 1800 calories is probably about the size of the palm and thickness of someone's hand. I'm 5'3", not someone 6 feet tall. It's usually the person's hand. So you look at David's hand, and the palm and the thickness is the size the hamburger should be, or the chicken. If it's fish, you can do the whole hand. And then you have a fistful of your pasta or your rice or your beans, and then you have lots of vegetables. That's an 1800 calorie diet. If you do that twice a day and you have a couple of snacks. So you don't have to measure it out. We do like when you measure it, but if you're not measuring it, think it's about the size of his hand, the size of his fist, and lots of vegetables with oil and seasonings on top. That's like lunch and dinner and a couple of small snacks, and you're within the calorie range. So if you need to, otherwise it's too many things to think about at one time. It's like, oh my gosh, how many calories? There's this, like there's 5 things to think about at his meal. So if we can simplify all of them, I think it will be easier for you. So any questions about David?
No, thank
You
you.
guys feel more comfortable after this?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so then let's move on to Joey. So he has also the low sodium and mechanical chopped. His doesn't have to be as small as David's, at least according to the diet plan. But if you notice that he's shoving the food in super fast also, then chop it a little bit smaller. I don't know David and Joey in this home at all. So I don't know their behaviors. I don't know that much about him, but Joey's on feeding assist. So you're really in control of how fast it goes into his mouth. He's in control of how fast he swallows it. So if you see that it's happening too fast and he's like wanting more instantly, chop him smaller, like the baby size.
Okay.
But mechanical chopped is usually closer to the larger squares of like chicken or fish, whereas the minced, we're talking smaller, and not these fingers, just my little finger, my little circle over here. So Joey is allowed to have a little bit bigger, and that means I'm assuming that he chews a little bit more than David does, and he doesn't have as much of a choking hazard risk. However, based on the rest of his diet order, I'm still concerned about him choking as well. So I would say better be safe than sorry by chopping it a little bit smaller. And that way, if you did chop Joey's a little smaller, it's going to be easier for you because you're doing David's and Joey's about the same. Then it's not that different for the two of them. Is that okay and helpful?
Okay. Yeah.
They'll have almost the
Yes.
same. Yeah. And then Joey, yeah, so Joey and David are almost the same. And now how is Joey's body weight? How is Joey's body weight? Is he average or overweight, under?
He's not overweight, but he's okay. Joey is pretty okay.
Okay, so is it 1800 calories? Maybe you give him a couple of spoonfuls more food than David. Good. If we're like, to simplify, if we're making David's and
Hey,
Joey's
you can't
very
drink up all your stuff now.
What's that? So if David and Joey's are fairly similar, Joey can have an extra little bit of calories, is what it sounds like, based on the diet order. But you know them and you know his body weight. But for both of them, we need to keep them slow and steady. Slow and steady wins the race always. We need them to chew more and swallow. If they're not doing enough chewing, you need to quote unquote do the chewing for them by cutting it smaller.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so the only difference really between Joey and David is Joey gets like a few extra bites. That according to this diet order. And if if you feel he is overweight, then keep him exactly the same as David, as long as he's okay with it. Do these residents usually want more food? Do they ask for seconds or thirds, or do they just they eat and then they're good?
There's only Robert and Mario once more.
Right.
Robert and
It's
Mario.
always us.
Yeah.
And how are their body weights?
Mario is on the high side.
Okay,
Mhm.
Mhm.
And Robert just skip a little out of the weight.
he does
weight
what?
range. Yeah, just move the little out of the
I can't
the
understand.
actual weight.
He's okay?
But it's fine. It's okay
It's
for his
okay.
height.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
for
Oh,
his
he's
height,
tall.
it's okay. Yeah, he's tall.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
Mario is short or he's overweight.
okay. So, so since Joey and David are almost the same diet, they're basically the same. Joey can have a couple of bites more. Then if we look at Mario and Robert, I would say for Mario to use some of the same strategy as I said for the other guy, as I said for Joey, like, and David, like smaller plates, smaller amounts of food at once, even if you're just trimming off like a tablespoon or two. And then if he wants seconds and you give him a little extra, like another little childish side, like a mini portion, then maybe he'll feel satisfied and he'll feel like he got more. But if he is overweight, then they can eat almost the same amount, 1,800 calories. The average man, what are their ages approximately? Are they in their 50s or 40s?
No, David is in his 60s,
60s.
66. Then Joey 66, Mario 50, 55 thereabout, and Robert should be like Robert is 85, should be like
85 years old?
no 1985. So I'm trying to
In God
it should
life.
be like that something.
Okay, that's okay. So they're in their they're older men. So they also,
Yes, they're older.
yeah, so the digestion is not so good and metabolism is not as great at that age. So none of them are bodybuilders. None of them need to be eating a ton of food. They just need enough, right? Enough to keep their energy going, to keep their organs working. Like it's like driving a car. You can't drive a car without gas in it. So their bodies can't function and they can't think straight and they can't behave correctly without calories. But we're not trying to build them up to race any kind of race or anything. They're not going skiing down a mountain and they're not bodybuilding or running miles. So we just need to feed them 1,800 to 2,200 calories. It's not much more than what I described. Again, palm of their hand. You have your portion sizes with you, so you just need to make sure you look at their hand. So I don't have anything to compare it to. Let's see. This is about 2 ounces, just a little jar. So my hand is about the same size. If I was 6 feet tall, my hand would be about this size, So it's your portion sizes are with you. And that's the visual for the protein a couple of times a day, because we do protein at this home, right? Lunch and dinner usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we're doing protein twice a day at the main meals, it's about the size of the palm of their hand. Their amount of rice or pasta, pasta is the main course, or rice is part of the main dish. They can have a little more, but if it's a side accompaniment to salmon or chicken or some kind of steak or burger, it doesn't have to be bigger than the fist. So play around with that, because that's really helpful. It's like a tennis ball, maybe for most, maybe a lacrosse ball for some. And, when I said hold back a little bit of food and then give it to them later, maybe it's like a golf size ball. You leave off just a little, because you don't want their first plate to look like it's not enough food. You're just shaving off just a little golf size ball. And then when they want seconds, you give the golf ball size a bunch of extra vegetables. And as long as it tastes good, they'll eat it. But if you're giving someone dry lettuce and steamed broccoli, I would send it back also. It needs to have flavor and sauces and seasonings. And that is one of the biggest missing links that I find in the homes that we work with, is that no one's educated enough on how important the sauces and the seasonings are. It makes everything better, and they will comply better. So although Mario is on a regular diet, I would still say that he can eat fairly the same as David and Joey. But if you want to season it with a little bit of salt, no one needs a ton of sodium anyway. The only difference is the no dairy. I mean, so you will have to think about that at some of the meals. I generally recommend no one eat dairy, it's so unhealthy for humans, but I know we're used to it as a society, but I don't think there's any harm in not serving some dairy. So if Joey and David and Robert are not missing it and it's easier, it's actually going to be healthier if no one gets dairy. Maybe the dairy comes in the form of a slice of cheese that you break up over the food, or you melt on top of the chicken or the meat, like as a burger. So, and then it's not so challenging, but the coconut yogurt is not dairy. Almond yogurt, cashew yogurt, they're not dairy, and they're everywhere at all the different stores. So if you're, they all have all the milks too, the alternative milk. So if you're wanting to use, coconut milk in your cooking, then that would be fine for all 4 residents. You can cook, think of it like a Hawaiian dish, or maybe Jamaican. You saute or marinate some chicken or fish with like coconut milk and some seasoning. And all you have to do is type in on the computer, sauces with coconut milk, and I'm sure you'll find things that you can easily make. So I would say, as far as the dairy goes for Mario, is anyone in need of dairy for any reason, or would you guys not care if you skipped dairy for everybody? Or is that an issue?
If
Oh
it's,
no, Mario.
if it's
For Mario,
healthy,
no dairy. Go
And
ahead, Franca.
I
What
said
did
if
you
it's healthy, I think we can do it.
say that again, Franca?
I said if it's healthy, I think we can do that. We can skip it.
Yeah, it's not we've learned by now in our lives and in the planet that eating cow dairy as a human is not good for you. We feed our babies human breast milk, and then we were taught to eat all this cow dairy. And so many people have dairy allergies, and so many people have health problems that it's just easier to skip it, because it's not adding any health benefits. It actually leaves the body more acidic. So in the case of David, maybe it helps his acid by leaving dairy out.
Okay.
In general, almost everything that we eat leaves our body more acidic, except for vegetables. So if you are trying to help him be less acidic, I'm just gonna mute somebody for a minute. Okay, if we're trying to help David be less acidic, and we want to help them all be healthier, serve more vegetables, but just make them taste good. Wait, I think somebody needs to come in again. Okay, Maria is here. So, I described it like if this is your plate, like I want to show something like a symbol of a plate. I'm going to use this notebook. If this was the size of the plate, you have the fist over here of your meat, or your protein, right? It's like the size of my palm. Over here is like the fist of the carbs, and all of this is vegetables. It's just not boring. Like I went on a date with someone, and he wanted to make me dinner, and so he made me boiled chicken and steamed broccoli, and I was like, this is like the worst meal I've ever had. It's like, then I cooked for him and I used sauces and seasonings and I made the same food and it just tasted like a million times better. So if you put a few extra minutes in, then you will want to eat it also, and then the residents will be happier. And then they won't miss the things you're cutting out. So more vegetables, like just saute them in the oils and the seasonings. Think of like a wok, but it's not fried. It's just, is that easy enough? Do you need me to explain that more? Or do you get that basics of like,
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yes, we get it.
Okay.
Thank you.
yeah, go to town with seasonings, like, but the difference in the seasonings though, if you're buying them at the 99-cent store and they've been in your cabinet at the home for 10 years, throw them out. Because they get moldy and then they have toxins on them. So just get a couple of new ones, start with some of the ones you like and that you know how to cook with, and then eventually you can add on some different ones. And that way you're also not spending the whole budget on stuff that you're not using yet. Start with a couple of simple things. The basics. Everyone likes oregano and mint and rosemary. They just add seasonings to oil. Think of Italian food. And you can, that's another, I think we have some of that stuff on the menu, but just be creative. So I think big picture, really, everyone's food can be about the same. The only one we didn't really talk about yet was Robert. And Robert is on a regular diet, but with feeding assist. So if he needs help eating, again, we're going to be thinking about chopping it up. You have to watch him, who is ever feeding him or feeding any of these men. You need to see, like, when their neck, we all know what swallowing looks like. You need to see if you put the food in their mouth, their neck starts moving instantly. And that means they're just like swallowing whole chunks of food and they're not digesting it. So you need to see their mouth like move a few times and, talk to them so that they have time to chew. But because you've all been with friends and you're asking them a question when they're eating and then they're like trying to answer this, so they swallow the food quickly, or you've done it. So don't do that. Don't ask them questions while they're chewing. Talk to them. Like, whatever you want to say, talk about the food itself or talk about a movie or, something they're interested in, so that it like is relaxing them and they might actually want to chew. Like, think of how you feel at the end of a massage or a yoga class or an amazing nap and you're just like in slow motion. Like, that's how slow we want them to eat. Because it takes 22 minutes for your stomach to tell your brain I'm full. So if we're wanting Mario to eat less, then we also don't want to feed him in 5 or 7 minutes. And because he's the only one, he's one of the only ones eating by himself, we all know you can scarf food down in 5 seconds. So slow, like put on slow music in the background. There's stations on YouTube like meditative music or dining music. I'm sure there is. Like, you almost won't even notice it's on, but it just like slows everything down. Because I know some of the homes are like super busy with this one's going, the phone's ringing. Like, I can hear it now through some of the feedback. I think some of you are at the home. So if you can set a little tone for the eating environment is 99% of your health. So if you can set the tone to like make it calm and quiet, maybe they will slow down and then they'll be full where they won't want seconds, or, they'll get to that point eventually. So I think big picture, our number one was, I'm going to let some of you guys give me the summary of the things we talked about. And then if there's any other questions, and anybody can tell me if you want to do it, Franca or anyone else. I know Maria just joined us, so she can watch the video later.
Okay. We actually talk about David chopping his food in baby size.
Baby size. Yeah.
Yes. Then you said if as well.
Baby size.
So you can actually do the same for Joey. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then you also advise that we should make sure that we use like all this oil,
Olive oils and
olive
seasoning.
oil, avocado oil, just to get the flavor with just Italian way, as you said. I just remember Italian food. So,
Don't serve daily.
so it will make it better for them to eat and chew very well. So, and for Mario, I know that Mario eat by himself. So we can equally break down his food for not cutting it in pieces, but just reduce his portion of food. So that because of his weight, anyway, we're just watching his weight. That is the main concern because
Right.
yeah. So you talk about no dairy for the old clients that it to be healthier for them.
Yeah, and I think possibly also chopping it's a little smaller for Robert than, because it's not on his list, but if he's on feeding assist, he needs some help. I don't know what his reason for feeding assist is, but just to observe whether or not he's even chewing or if he's swallowing whole chunks of food.
I think Robert swallow. I don't think
Swallows
Robert
it fast.
Yeah,
It's
eat fast,
fast.
very, very
Eat
fast.
fast and he swallow. He swallow a
So it's-
lot.
So it's really, I mean, I think I'm bringing you to the point where they're all really eating almost the same, even though it looks like they're
Yeah,
eating.
it looks different. Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's gonna eat a little bit the same. You know, as far as dairy goes, if you want to have a couple of things in the house that David and Joey can get, if that becomes essential, like cheese, maybe just a couple of slices here and there. But otherwise, no dairy. Everyone's food is chopped up a little bit smaller. It's not dry at all. It's
Mhm.
moist and
Right.
juicy and flavorful. I didn't mention sesame oil, but sesame oil is one of the best tasting oils on food. It just gives it this like, you don't need a lot, maybe you just add a little bit of that. So if you don't saute and cook the food in something juicy, you have to add it on top. People think I'm crazy also when if I have a salad, I take the oil and I usually do about 3 rounds. Like it's just more filling that way and it feels better and it tastes better. And I'm not fat and I'm not overweight and I'm healthy. So it's not a problem. You know, in the science says that too, like we need fat. So we're not going to be fat phobic. And then for David, we're just not going to feed him. The drinks for at least David and Joey are going to be a little bit thicker, not too thin. And we're going to give them also baby size glasses at first, like, so that it's all about slowing them down, I think is one of the main summaries for everybody. Smaller and slower,
Yeah.
smaller and slower. So I think that's probably the biggest summary for everybody. I feel
Yeah.
like we simplified it for you a lot. Does it feel more simple?
Mm.
Does it seem like it would
Okay.
be easier to feed them?
I think it will be easier. Guys, I don't know. This will staff. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and she also said that we should look out for the label for the low sodium. We should look out for
125.
125 milligram.
Okay.
So
And
when
then
we are doing
And the,
shopping,
and the smoothies for David.
smoothies for David, yeah, and not too thin, a little bit like, you know, somewhere between water thin and thick, because I don't think thick is going to be so good for someone having swallowing issues either, even though this says the thick, it's mildly thick. It's not really thick.
Right. Thank you.
So why don't you guys, you know, take a stab at this for a little while, and if it's not working, or, you know, we can meet again in a few weeks and tweak it a little bit further, but you know, it's up to you guys, the staff, like you're in charge of their food. So think of it like they're going to a restaurant every night and you're the chef. So you want to please them because you want a big tip. You want them, you know, people are happier when they eat good food. We all know that. We've all experienced it. It doesn't matter, you know, who you are or where you eat, or food makes us happy. So, and they're at your mercy. So you also have this opportunity to learn how to cook and experiment at your job. You get paid for it. So have a little fun with it. And you have the internet, just look up like sauces or, you know, low sodium sauces. I think if you do low sodium sauces, you're probably going to get like some boring things, but look on some of like the creative types of blogs as your first choices. Nothing from the American Dietetic Association or Heart Association. Theirs are all going to be really boring. You want to look for like, you know, the young, vibrant people that have like cooking blogs, and you want to look on their websites or blogs for good recipes. Something more modern where they use rice milk or coconut milk or, you know, some different seasonings or apple cider vinegar in their recipes so that it's like different. And then you guys just have to purchase the items for the home and play with them and have fun doing it.
Yes, and I will want you to talk to Awani because she's in charge of the menu.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to her after. I'm going to give her a summary of what we talked about. I'll actually even send her the video as well so
Okay.
that she knows exactly what we spoke about.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, I'm the head nutritionist, and then the other dietitians that work with the various homes. I have more holistic training. They have very traditional training. So I always bring a different twist when I educate. They're a little bit more by the book, by the American Dietetic Association, and they usually come to me for ideas. So I like to do these in-services because I feel like I can bring something different to the table for you guys. Literally.
Thank you.
I appreciate.
Okay. So I will
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure. And, you know, let me know if you have any questions and I'll send you over the video later, Franca, and we'll talk soon. Keep me posted in a couple of weeks how it's going.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I will.
Okay,
Bye,
thank you so
everybody.
much. Take care.
My pleasure. Have a healthy day.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
Nice
Thank
meeting
you.
you. Okay, guys. Have a
Bye.
happy day.
Bye.